I want to go through a little sequence of stretching that goes really well after a squat routine. So we're going to think about the kind of tissue that's been worked in a squat pattern and might need a little bit of focus after session. So the first thing we're going to do is work on a butterfly squat. A butterfly stretch. So you're going to sit yourself in position with your heels quite close to your hips. You're going to actively pull your knees into the ground. So I'm using my buttocks to open out this kind of region of tissue on the inside of the hip. My shoulder blades are active. They're actively pulling down towards my buttocks. I'm lifting my chest up. I'm not pulling forward because that's going to create a rounded back. I'm very much thinking of driving my chest up to the ceiling in front of me. Now, the key to, I guess, the thought process behind what cool down stretches do. So we've hopefully been working in and out of range of motion. So you've got good range of motion through the joints. So you're not necessarily stretching to increase that range right now. You're really just trying to get the tissue just to relax a little bit, because after training, there's going to be a lot of brain activation to the muscles. So you want to kind of use the breath just to try and get the muscles to disengage. So we're very much going to think of good, deep diaphragmatic breathing for all of these stretches. So we're going to take a deep inhale through the nose, then a slow exhale. So nasal breath in, mouth breath out. Keep breathing in and out. With every exhale, just trying to get the legs to really melt into the ground. Using that breath to really just sort of feel how the groin muscles can switch off. So hopefully by the end of the fifth breath, you feel like you've got a nice amount of kind of relaxation on the tissue in the hip. And then from there, we're going to move, so very much that was a groin stretch. From there, we're going to move more into glute stretch. So you're going to come into 90-90. Now, often these are in the warm-up, but there's no reason why you can't do them in the cool-down as well. So the key to the 90-90 stretch, as it will be for the warm-up, is to think of the pelvis at tilting forward. So you're looking at an anterior pelvic tilt, so to tilt in that direction, thinking of pulling the tissue of the bum up and arching the lower back. So we think of chest is high. We're pulling up at the hip at the back. I also think of pushing the buttocks back behind me. So if I think of sliding the bum along the mat, pulling the waist down, my shorts up, and I can feel that stretch quite deep in my hip capsule. There's no need to drive too far forward. I get a pretty good stretch just there. What I would say is really think about getting the outside hip to twist around. So lots of pelvic rotation. That doesn't mean ribcage rotation. You haven't got to turn the ribs now. We're not trying to get spine mobility here. So with the hip turn towards the knee, thinking about that forward tilt on the pelvis, get the stretch. What I will say is now to get here, I've got a little bit of tension in my lower back. So I'm just going to bring my ribcage down from there. Now I've still got a lovely hip stretch, and I can start to use that breathing. So anything from 3 to 5 breaths, and then at the end of your last breath, just bring yourself out of that and switch to the opposing side. Now you may have heard me say before, but the key to stretching, or the key focus when you're thinking about stretching, is not actually to think of the word stretching at all. You're not trying to stretch muscles. You're never trying to stretch muscle. You don't have the ability to stretch muscles. The brain will always contract back against you if you push too hard into a stretch. So we just go to the point of about 7 out of 10 on a stretch scale. So we think of that sliding the bum back, we think of rocking the hips forward, feel the stretch. Now I'm not going to try and anchor any harder into that stretch. I know the stretch sensation will come on harder, but what you're actually achieving by pushing harder and harder and harder into the stretch is you're actually exciting the defense mechanism of the spine, of the muscle, sorry, which is to contract back against you as not to damage the tissue. So actually really hard stretching, if anything, will make you tighter, or certainly make you very much actively contracting tissue at end range. And we're trying to get the opposite to happen. We want the body and the brain to relax the tissue in end range. So we're going to go to about a 7 out of 10, and we go back to the breath. Inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. And really listen to your body as you breathe. If you feel at any point in time that the tissue starts to relax a little bit and the brain just allows you to be a bit more controlled in that position, at that point you can go back into pushing more into the stretch, find that 7 out of 10 on the stretch scale, and then get back to your breathing. And every time the brain lets you just relax, you can just lever a bit further in. But be very, very aware of what your body's telling you. Don't try and force any of this. You're just listening to the signals your body's telling you that it's okay to go further. So at the end of your either 3 to 5 breaths, you can bring yourself out of that stretch. Okay, from there, we're going to go into a hip sleeper stretch. So for a hip sleeper stretch, so everything done so far, we've done adductors, we've done outside of the hip. Now we're going to do, or we've done external rotators, glutes. Now we're going to look to do a hip sleep stretch. So chest is tall, one leg is out at the side, it's just in position there, it's kind of loose, hanging out. And then from there, I like to actively turn the toe towards the ceiling. Chest is high, and I use my forearm, just apply a little bit of pressure. So I'm feeling this stretch right on the outside of the hip. So we're working on the muscles that lengthen to achieve a hip internal rotation. This is a hip sleeper stretch. Same thing, use the breath, inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. Let your arm press, let your arm be heavy, pressing into the leg. Use the breath. And if the tissue starts to relax, allow just to push a little bit further to achieve that 7 out of 10. Hold for 3 to 5 breaths. At the end of your last breath, be careful because you're right on a hip capsule here. Bring it out and come to the other side. But I will say a note on any knee pain on this sort of thing. If your knee is just sort of passively in and you're pushing on it, you can torque the knee, you can rotate the knee a little bit. So if you do feel any discomfort in the knee, we'll just try and keep an element of stiffness in the knee. So putting the toe towards the knee joint, that's why I like to do that. But also just make sure you tense up the calf, tense up the muscles around the knee a little bit. That should reduce that sensation of any knee discomfort. So find the stretch, and a point here that you might get a better stretch, leg further forward, you might get a better stretch, knee very bent, explore it, it's your body. My sweet spot very much is about here. So you have a little play, find out what feels right for you. Same thing, 3 to 5 breaths. At the end of your last breath, bring yourself out of there. And then we're going to go into your child's pose. So you're going to sit on your heels, and we're going to go into your knee flared position, ankles in this dorsiflex position. So we're going to sit on our heels. We want to try and keep our hips down as we forward fold onto the ground. So I'm actually going to push into the floor a little bit to make sure my hips stay back. And then keeping my hips down on my heels, I'm going to start to walk the arms forward. Same thing, we're going to use the breath, trying to push the hips back onto the heels, trying to reach the arms forward. So we're not just hanging in this one, we do want to keep the arms active. Walk the fingertips along the floor. and then use the breath. At the end of your last breath, you bring yourself up in position, and the last stretch we're going to do is the segmental cat-cow. So the spine, of course, when you're holding weights in the arms, does end up getting quite tight, so it's good to lengthen out. We've done the child's pose, cat-cow. We're going to really focus on getting some length through the lumbar region of the spine. So cat-cow, cat-camel, whatever you want to call it. We're going to try and think segmentally. So what I like to do is take my thumb and then press it into the kind of lowest two discs that I can find a bit of space between. And then imagine I'm just going to try and get a bit of flexion. So flexion is this movement, but just a tiny bit. A bit of flexion segmentally at that one point of the spine that my thumb's pressing into. Now I reposition my thumb up to roughly what I think the next vertebrae space is going to be. I'm going to try and flex that part of the spine. Same thing, moving like an inch up the spine. When you're in the sort of middle of the back here, I can feel the bony prominence of the spine until you sort of reach the end range of your shoulder flexion, and then you can just start to flow without the pressure. But I like to visualize someone walking their thumb up my spine. What I would say is not to drive the shoulder blades into the ground and get this big flexion in the spine, because you're buying up movement in your shoulders. We very much want to think of the spine, and then when you get to that nice big flex position, we extend out of it. And this one we're going to do from the tailbone. So I start and finish this one at the tailbone, but of course you can start and finish it at the neck. And we're going to flow through again. So again, thinking segmentally through each part of the spine, each joint having the ability to move independently of the joint above and the joint below. So we've got equal ability to move every single disc space in the spine. Think of the spine as one of the shock absorbers to the body. The better you can articulate each joint, the better you can divide force evenly across each part of the spine. So really important for spinal health to be able to segment properly. Okay, and that's a nice little routine to finish off your squat session.